This is At Your Service, the service management podcast from CRM Audio, with your hosts, Sean Tabor and Scott LaFonte.
Kingswaysoft is a leading integration solution provider offering software solutions that make data integration affordable and painlessly easy. Thousands of enterprise clients from over 70 countries and regions rely on Kingswaysoft to integrate their data with various business systems in order to drive their business efficiency and fully leverage their information assets. Kingswaysoft is a leading provider of Microsoft Dynamics integration software, including Dynamics 365, CRM, AX, NAV, GP, SL, as well as many other applications, such as Marketo, Dropbox, QuickBooks, and Salesforce. Whether you need one solution or several, Kingswaysoft works easily within the SSIS platform to make your integration processes as quick and easy as possible. Many of their clients have seen 3 to 10 times greater data integration performance after switching to the SSIS integration platform. We thank Kingswaysoft for sponsoring this episode of At Your Service.
Welcome to another episode of At Your Service. This is a bit of a special one. We have ourselves a guest, and I would normally at this point say, as always, my co-host Scott LaFonte is here, but he hasn't got here yet. He's running a little behind. He'll be here shortly, so he'll be joining us. But as always, I am Sean Tabor, your host today, and our guest. I've been trying to get this guy on the podcast, and it's really my fault, not his, for months now. And that is the Global Dynamics 365 Field Service Lead. That's a fancy title, Mr. Ben Vollmer. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing awesome, Sean. Now, I'm told that title and $4 get you a small coffee at Starbucks.
Yeah, I don't even know if it'll get you small coffee. Depending on tax.
Well, black. I mean, we got small black American coffee. And it's $4.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm happy that you're here. I'm excited about having you on the podcast. As I said, I've been trying to get you for a long time, and most of that's my fault. I'd say let's do this. You'd say yeah, let's do it, and I'd say okay, I'm gonna email you, and then that email wouldn't come. So that was on me. I'll take that one.
I have this whole global thing, by the way. So that time zone thing, and
it's true. You are hopping all over the world. Well, and it is. This is going to be the episode right before the holiday, and it was requested that we get a big jolly holiday type guy. I couldn't get the normal one. I couldn't get the guy in the red suit, so I figured, what the hell? I'll get Ben.
You're talking a red suit or red polo? Because that guy is actually hard to get a hold of, I think.
So what is it? What does a Dynamics 365 for field service lead actually do? What do you do at Microsoft, Ben?
What do I do at Microsoft? Well, my goal is to do as little as possible, get paid as much as possible. That's my goal.
Good plan.
It hasn't actually worked out that way. My job is to really help our customers understand the value of what field service does for them, and then help make sure that our teams here at Microsoft understand what field service is, understand how to use field service, and understand how to explain what field service is to their customers, mainly pre-sales. But also handling customer escalations and other fun things where we need somebody who's got a cool title that can help make sure that we do things right.
Mm-hmm. And how have you seen in your time in that role? How have you seen field service for Dynamics 365 grow? Like, give me day one Dynamics 365 field service lead to today.
So I would liken field service at Microsoft right now to a 16-year-old.
Okay.
We're almost an adult, and so when I joined this team and I started this role, We were a tween or earlier, and now we're a late stage teenager, growing in maturity very, very rapidly. So like just the number of like customers that we've engaged with. When I first took over this role, it was literally an Excel spreadsheet with I don't know, less than 100 lines on it. I mean, way less than 100 lines on it. It was an Excel spreadsheet that you and I could go through and memorize all the names on it.
Okay.
And I'm going through the pipe, so I go through our sales opportunities in our pipeline and our customers we're engaged with, and there's now hundreds of them. I mean, I can't keep track of all the customers.
That's fantastic, and I would say that's really, there's been a definitive push in the capabilities for field service. The modifications from Field 1 to incorporate it more within the actual Dynamics 365 solution, I think play a big role in that. And I also think our ability to enable connected field service is a big part of that story as well. Would you disagree or agree?
I would agree. I think that there's actually a couple of things I think that make us, so let's back up for a second. If you look at service all up, because you're at my service.
Yes, I
am. If you look at service all up, if you look at the number, so go back 20 years. Back when I had hair, when you were young, and I was skinny. We field service was a back office function.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
I cut my teeth on Great Plains field service, on Winsoft, which is now Key to Account field service. I cut my teeth on Dynamics SL or Solomon at the time field service. So when I started doing field service 25 plus years ago, it was all back office driven. And so we've seen a shift in the marketplace where service centers have gone from a cost basis to a profit center or an as a service center. But when they do that, their capabilities need to change. And so if you look at Microsoft with Dynamics 365, you've got customer service, right? You've got the ability to take an agent taking a call, and that call can then create a work order or create a dispatch of a technician. The number of companies out there that have a customer service solution and a field service solution that are in the marketplace today, you can count on one hand. Matter of fact, you can pull a couple digits off your hand, and you're still good.
Yeah.
And then if you add to that, it's actually interesting. I'm working with a company right now that's got they have 700 techs, 500 do project-based work, 200 do field service work. When they run out of field service people, they can't just pull project people in, or they're out of project people, they can't just pull field service people in. And it's not because they don't have the same skills, it's because they have two different systems. So for me, kind of the next thing that makes us unique is the PSA module, or the the ability to go from a customer service incident to a work order, which is a day long, or might be multi-day, but most of the time it's usually a day long, to these multi-day PSA things. And so from a capabilities perspective, that makes us unique. And the second layer that makes us unique capabilities wise is connected field service. Azure IoT Hub is just amazing in its capabilities. It's amazing what we can do with it. It's amazing in how it works, and the ability to connect into that. And I've looked at how other people do it. Other companies that have field service solutions.
Right.
It's not very rich. It's kind of a I got a device and now I'm going to put it in a system now. I'm going to trigger it. But connected field service is huge, and I think from a difference in the marketplace perspective, I think there's two differences. One is we can do the end-to-end service story, so customer service, field service, project service, and we can do the IoT end-to-end, so from the device all the way in through the action layer. We can do that. No other no other software company out there can do the end-to-end service story, nor can they do the end-to-end IoT story from the device all the way through dispatching a technician for the repair.
Well, and now taking a step back with universal resource scheduling, it's not your standard field service proposal either. You have flexibility there, right? So you could have a sales org who wants to track when they send out pre-sales teams or professional services org, and they want to use field service to track when they're scheduling pre-sales calls or things of that nature. We can now do that. So that's another. It's probably a smaller component of it, but it's another way that field service can be enabled outside of the standard technician going on site to fix a widget, for example.
Yeah, I think I would call that a platform capability,
right,
versus functionality. From a platform capability perspective, universal resource scheduling is a awesome. I mean, I've had customers over the years, not a ton of them, but some. One of them was a media company that sold to car dealerships, and they required their teams to make 20 or so visits a day.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to really work our backsides off to make dynamics at the time do something that was close to it. URS solves that almost immediately out of the box.
Right.
Because I think the difference is really skills based.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a technical integration architect.
Right.
And so when that pre-sales request comes down and they go, we need a technical pre-sales architect, that shouldn't get routed to you. That might get routed to somebody who has those skills. Right. And you should be getting the skills of functionality guru.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I agree. That is a platform enablement kind of solution. But looking at when we then expand into the whole realm of IoT. So for the folks listening to the podcast that maybe aren't as familiar with IoT, IoT stands for Internet of Things, but at a high level, describe to our audience what Microsoft considers the IoT whole play. What does that mean to Microsoft?
Well, and I'm going to preface this with if you the joke I tell people, Sean, is that we're not Microsoft's not an 800-pound gorilla. We're 801-pound gorillas.
Okay.
So when we talk about the act of what does Microsoft think of IoT, I'm going to tell you that kind of depends on who you talk to at Microsoft, because there's multiple kind of IoT teams, if you will. When I think about IoT, when it comes to how the broad thinking is, it's devices. So it's whether it be a Windows device, and I've seen phones be IoT devices.
Right.
So a device with connectivity, with machine learning processing, with data analytics, and then with action. So those 5 boxes make up what we think of IoT as.
Okay.
And so we're the only company from an IoT perspective that has all 5 of those boxes. And so IoT is really the ability to take things, whether they be things you make or things you service, and get telemetry off of them. So being able to know whether the device I have in my hands here works. I mean, an early example was the Nest thermostat of 10 years ago is a great example of an IoT device. Now that's the consumer level. At the industrial level, that's a whole different conversation.
Right, and obviously for an organization to really embrace IoT, it's not as simple as, okay, Microsoft, turn it on, right? it's not flipping a switch and now I'm in IoT. It's not like when you go for a consumer level IoT experience would be something like Amazon Echo, right? That's kind of a concept of an IoT device going out to the internet and retrieving information. But for an organization that maybe sells products that they want to monitor, there's a number of steps that have to be taken by that organization before they can really implement something like connected field service.
Yeah, but and again, I think for me, I see companies do this one of two ways. Either they start with the device, and then we kind of fall into field service at a later date, or they start with field service and back their way into the device. So
Right.
there's two entry points. It's the device side or it's the customer experience side.
Right. So you have to have a strategy either way, right?
And it's the same strategy. I mean, if you look at so ignore the technology for a second. If you look at what the strategy is, the business model is changing. Business models are changing. Servitization, which is my dictionary on my computer hates me because every time I type servitization, it freaks out on me. But servitization is real. And when and if you talk about servitization in the confines and in the realm of IoT enables servitization. What servitization is, it's offering your service, offering your product as a service. Some examples that you might have seen recently was both Volvo and Porsche in Atlanta are now offering subscription-based car services. Have you seen these before?
I have, yeah.
Okay, that's really so. What those two manufacturers are doing is they're doing servitization. They own the asset. You're using the asset. You're paying them for the asset. One of the well-known examples Microsoft's talked about for a while is like Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce doesn't sell motors anymore. I mean, they still do, but they don't sell motors. They sell thrust by the hour.
Okay.
And so they quit with their old model, which was I sell you a motor, I sell you the service contract on the motor, and if and when it ever goes down, I'll get to it when I get to it. It was interesting talking to them. They're like, well, if we can't fix it right there and we can't meet the SLA, we just put a new motor in and we rebuild the old one and we figure out where to put it next. I mean, could you imagine doing that 10 years ago?
No.
Hey, Sean. Nissan comes up to your car and goes, "Hey, Sean, your Versa's broke. I'll give you a new one while we fix your old one." It's unheard of. And so what IoT enables is companies like that to change their business model. And I know, but you look at like what one of Power Objects customers, Kelly Roofing, is doing. They're a roofing company in Florida. He's adding a servitization layer to his business offering. So he's IoT enabling roofs, which I think if you think of a roof, it's a roof on a building. It doesn't get much dumber than a roof, right? There's no intelligence there.
Right.
He's offering roofing protection as a service.
And how is IoT enabling that?
So if the roof leaks, he knows about where the customer does.
I see.
He's putting.
So he's putting. He's putting devices in the roof. Okay, all right. Interesting. Now that's a concept. That's an implementation I would never have thought of. Because when I think IoT, I think standard manufacturing firms creating objects or creating units, and then there's a fault. Or I think, your car. You have a problem with your car, message gets sent. That kind of thing is the first thing I think of when I think IoT.
Right, and I did as well, and it took me a little while to get my head wrapped around what Ken was doing. But when you think about IoT. I mean, from you and I and our customers and the customers that are listening, from you and I talking, there's three places for IoT when it comes to field service. One is manufacturers, which you just, I make a widget, I sell a widget to a customer, I IoT enable that to get it out to my customer and pull the data in. But that's the first one. The second one is service providers. I'm an HVAC company. I service Train, Carrier, 52 other brands. And so I basically IoT enable all of it's a competitive difference for me as a service provider. So instead of me going, hey, Sean, you don't have to call me when your air conditioner goes down. I will know your temperature is rising and you're not home, and I'll come fix it for you. So it's a competitive difference for a service provider.
Right. Or I'll be able to troubleshoot, diagnose, and fix it over the internet using my own systems. So I wouldn't even have to go out there.
Exactly. And then the last way is I would say the kind of the final way here is that there is a internal asset management, which is not something you're going to hear me say a whole lot. It's not a sexy sentence to say, but
right.
I'm sitting in building 121 right now, one of our buildings. How many million square feet of office space do you think Microsoft has?
Hundreds of millions.
Okay.
Globally.
Globally. If you look at one of our early case studies for Field 1, Christensen Farms out of the Midwest, they have about 300 pig farms. They treat those. They have an internal team of technicians that fix those pig farms.
Okay.
It's field service, but it's just done internally.
Right.
So you could use IoT to enable that scenario as well, and that's a very real scenario. So those three scenarios are kind of three that I see. And we get fascinated with the first one because that's where we get hung up. If you're a partner deploying field service and looking at IoT, I would tell you, if you're a mid-sized partner, look at the last two before you look at the first one.
Mm-hmm. And is that because there's more opportunity in the space that's untapped, or is that because why would you say to look at the last two?
Think about what's the development cycle of a piece of equipment. So if Hitachi's going to build a new bulldozer,
okay,
how long does it take for Hitachi to start the plans to build a new series of bulldozers or forklifts or trains or whatever the heck they want to build?
Right.
From the time Hitachi starts doing that to the time they actually put the finished product out the other side.
Could be years.
It could be, and it is years. So I don't know about you, but I like to eat today, not years from now.
Right.
And I'm picking on Hitachi, but you could also think about how long it takes a car to get through the development process.
Right. Okay.
They basically release a car, and then as soon as they release it, they start working on the next version of the car. Those are long lead cycle times. Now, there's small manufacturers that don't have long, long lead times, but most of them, when you think of elevator manufacturers, when you think of, all these IoT scenarios you start thinking about in your head, those lead times are a minimum of 24 to 36 months long.
Right.
And so the other two scenarios, if I go to a company that repairs elevators and says, "Hey, I can telemetry enable the elevators you service and give you a competitive advantage," that's going to take a minute to make that decision, not 3 years.
So basically, what you're doing is we as a Microsoft partner would be selling IoT or connected field service as a component of our service capabilities, right, to them, and they would turn around and turn that into a service offering of their own.
That's correct.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I can see that then. As opposed to trying to implement from the ground up. Okay, I get it now.
The clean slate very rarely happens, right? I mean, we don't get clean slates in life. Rarely do we get clean slates in life. Once you become a Red Sox fan, you can never become a Yankees fan.
God, no. Nor should you ever.
Thank God I hate all sports. The clean slate rarely happens. So you can't you can't bank your business. You shouldn't go after business. That's an anomaly. I like predictability. And so going after service providers for most partners and most service providers are looking for a competitive advantage. I mean, take you as a partner. You're looking for an advantage that you can get over other partners when you're talking to customers. What's my secret sauce? And if you go to a customer and say, Mr. Customer, I'll put you an IoT device that anytime you have a problem, if you double click and hold this, the president of Hitachi will ring your phone within 30 minutes. I think you might have a competitive advantage there.
Right.
You might have an angry president too, but you'd have a competitive advantage. You have a competitive advantage for a little bit, right? Since Scott's finally joined us, you might have one of the CEOs of DXE calling you.
Let me ask this: as we're seeing just in the general consumer marketplace, IoT device costs go down, right? Making it more available to consumers. Do you see a similar trend for companies to lower their barriers of entry into the IoT space? Because not everybody clearly has the ability to necessarily engage with a Microsoft partner or have the ability to jump right into connected field service. So do you see the barriers of entry in terms of cost or implementation time going down as we move forward and as the capabilities increase?
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing really to figure out from most companies' perspective is, I mean, if you back up for a second here, and so let's just say you're a mid-sized or smaller manufacturing or service firm, right? You got 250, 300 devices out there running around. I mean, you're a small customer for the customers I deal with. You're in the small range, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're talking. I mean, it's cheap. IoT Hub, you're looking at under $1,000 a month. You're paying for your technicians and connect on the field service side. And on the device side, you're looking at $10 to $75 a unit generally for devices.
Okay.
And so you're not looking at the now. I'm going to caveat that with now if you have an MRI machine, MRI machines require 2 full-size computers to collect all the telemetry data. You're not going to do that with a $9 chipset somewhere.
Right.
And so Ben, so one of the other things are, I mean, if you look at it and you're a small company and you sit there like, wow, I don't know if I can really, afford to do this. If you look at the flip side and the benefits of being proactive and monitoring that equipment, I would imagine could in theory save your company and your customers quite a bit of money by seeing if there's problems sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, Scott, the first thing from an IoT perspective, the first thing most companies look at, honestly, is cost savings. I was working with a customer actually earlier this year that was a trash company, which we wouldn't normally think of trash companies being a field service play. They had some specialized trash stuff, but we IoT enabled dumpsters for them. because it turns out the cost to get a rollback to get a dumpster out of a client's location and back to emptied and back to the location is about $300, and they're sending these rollbacks out to pick up what was essentially empty rollbacks. So by IoT enabling the dumpster, we could know when it emptied that dumpster or not. And so the initial thing was a cost savings. And then it's like, okay, so how do you go from cost savings to selling that dumpster as as an on-demand service or as a pay by the pounds, or how do you move that from a dumpster rental fee every month to a more servitized mechanism? IoT enables that, but the customer's initial foray into doing this, their initial reasoning was, and we saved them a bunch of money on the on the trash pickup. I mean, the trash pickup was where they paid for the project at.
Right. Because they were able to get the trash picked up when it was needed, as opposed to a set time where it could be overflowing, it could be empty, and they'll be paying for no pickup, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, let's just say you have 200 technicians. You've got, so 200 technicians. Let's just call it as a $500,000 project. Let's make up numbers here. And so it's a $500,000 project, and we have, and it's $250 a roll. So we've only got to save 200 rolls. Is that right? In order to pay back the project.
Now, a good chunk of what you were talking about in the monthly cost, so you're talking about essentially Azure IoT Hub transactions. Yes?
Yes.
So what would your argument be to someone that says, well, if I did another service that used Amazon Web Services, I can get it cheaper? Regardless whether that's actually an accurate statement or not, how would you talk to that?
I can get a steak at Ruth's Chris, or I can get a piece of meat that resembles something that lived in a cow once from McDonald's. But in seriousness, what I would say is you got to look at it from an end-to-end capabilities perspective. So there's lots of people who can do parts of IoT, and the interesting thing for me about IoT is, if you've ever been to an IoT trade show, everybody considers what they're doing as IoT, right. And there's lots of definitions of IoT. I would say that you got to make sure that the functionality fits your needs. And so, there are other programs out there that quite honestly might scale better to your company size. That's the case. I would say use them. But the bigger thing is making sure that the functionality meets your needs. Just like it does on the CRM side. If your needs aren't met by Dynamics, you probably shouldn't buy Dynamics.
Seems logical. I would definitely agree with that.
So, given that, and it is a end-to-end play, as you said, how does the dynamic solution help you maintain the appropriate level of security you need when implementing IoT?
So, security in IoT is one of those. There's multiple kind of vulnerability points for security. You have the connectivity side, which is so you have the device, and actually it was just at a trade show last week in Amsterdam, and TÜV, the German inspection board, actually had a whole session on IoT security there. It was interesting to watch. But one of the things that was interesting was, I think you're actually better off with a more modern device. If you they were talking about these old PLCs, these old these old control boards that people hooked up to computers now that are now hooked to the internet. So you can actually, he was actually walking you through some scripts where you could literally on the internet find random PLCs that random manufacturing companies have in your area, and you could take control of them over the internet remotely. Kind of a bad thing there. If you look at that from a security perspective, you have the device security itself. You have the device into the cloud security. So you have that security layer you got to go handle. And then you have the security inside the cloud. And then really you have the dispatch security. So making sure when you dispatch that technician, it's dispatched correctly, it's dispatched well. You have the right technician doing it at the right time. So security is really more of an end-to-end play than it is any one chunk of the thing is a security play.
Agreed. And with other solutions, you might be looking at, you have to secure this piece with a different component. You have to secure this other area with a different solution. Whereas we're looking at, like you said, a solid end-to-end with security throughout. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I can now tell my friend who said that he could do it cheaper with AWS. I can tell him something good.
I mean, and again, I've played AWS's solution, and it's got some neat functions to it. I'm not an IoT expert, so I can't tell you the difference between the AWS one and the Microsoft one at a deep level, but it has some neat functions to it. But for me, it wasn't a massive shift. So, and from a costing perspective, it was the same cost. I mean, what I would caution people about, and this is one of those things that drives me nuts, is everybody goes, "Oh, IoT, you mean like a Raspberry Pi?" I mean that's going to make you want to choke you right there if you mention Raspberry Pi and IoT in the same sentence.
Right.
Something like that's a proof of concept piece. That's a pilot piece. That's not a production piece.
Right. It's something that you'd see on a table at a trade show.
Yes, I mean, but you take a Raspberry Pi to a serious manufacturing company, they're going to laugh at you, and I know this because one of my friends did it.
Oh, jeez. Oh, that's unfortunate. Well, we've talked a lot about IoT. We've touched a little bit on connected field service. So let's talk a little bit more about the Dynamics 365 connected field service solution. So it is not, for those of you out there listening, you have the standard field service solution. This is an additional solution on top of it. It layers on top of the Dynamics 365 for field service. So let's talk about some of the capabilities, some of the changes that it makes to field service if we have people out there leveraging Dynamics 365 for field service right now.
So I guess the good news for me was, Sean, when I first saw the solution, it's actually been 2 years ago now. I thought of all the ways we could screw it up, and I was actually impressed by how our R&D and program management team built connected field service. Because if you look at our competitors out there, they're turning a business application into an IoT system, which is just the wrong thing, the wrong thing to do. What we've done with connected field services, we're leveraging the strength of IoT Hub. So all your processing, all of your big jobs, they all happen in Azure. They happen where it belongs. I call it the fire hose, right? You don't want to turn your kitchen faucet on and get a fire hose. So the fire hose is managed by Azure, and then just the anomalies, just the alerts are what hits in Dynamics 365. But from an architectural perspective, it basically, all the data comes in through IoT Hub, Stream Analytics processes. You put in a data lake, you can put it in a SQL server, you store the data, you process the data using machine learning, and then it kicks up into an alert queue. And all the alert queue does is it says, hey, I have a message. You define what the message is. It goes into a service bus, which then kicks off a logic app and creates a record in Dynamics 365 called IoT Alert. So from an architecture perspective, we're leveraging the best of Azure, and we're kicking off that IoT Alert, which is the equivalent of your kitchen faucet, into Dynamics 365, which then you can use workflow and other business-focused tools to take that and process it down to the right level.
Mm-hmm. That's very cool. I have not yet gotten the chance to implement connected field service. I'm looking forward to when I get to, but the capabilities that, I mean, I agree with you. It's taking a very solid infrastructure and allowing someone like myself to implement that and then take that data that the IoT alerts are providing and do a lot of cool things with the platform. So with the Logic app,
mm-hmm.
That's part of the solution, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So have you seen anyone build any innovative kind of additional Logic apps based on connected field service to extend it even further?
I think that, the one, if you look at like Kyle Young, myself and Ken Rawlings from PTC did a demo at Microsoft Ignite. Heather Hall did our demo at Business Forward. So if you get bored, you go to YouTube, type in field service Young at Ignite. You'll see the video, or you can go to YouTube, type in Business Forward, and about 50 minutes in, there's Heather's video. So we've been doing work with a company called PTC. They have a product called ThingWorks. So we then
Mm-hmm.
take that IoT data. We use ThingWorks to define the next best action. And you have a mixed reality headset that allows you to put on your HoloLens or your VR headset. And from that VR headset, you can then see the piece of equipment, see what the IoT data coming in is, and then be able to do things like disassembly and assembly instructions right there from the IoT alert screen.
Yeah, that's the wave of the future. Those are the things when we were growing up, you were like, oh wow, that's never going to happen. That's just way far in advance, and here it is today, right? You can put on HoloLens and be able to see and do things that probably most of us never even imagined would be possible.
Absolutely, Scott. I mean, it is one of those. It's a really cool thing to show people, and it was funny. I would say at Field Service Europe last week, I would say half the companies there were doing, we're offering, kind of small software companies offering similar type things. So it's interesting that, the need is there and the desire is there. But, remote, and this could be a whole different, we could, based on what I've got here, we could do a podcast. Just now, the remote technician enablement, how do I get that tech in the field to be more effective? There's a huge skills gap in field service. I mean, people are getting old. I mean, it happens to all of us, except for Sean's got enough formaldehyde.
It's because he's tiny.
He's tiny. That's right. Dinosaurs don't age. I was trying to say, Scott.
That's right. My little T-Rex arms flopping in the breeze.
But as the new people start up, we need to figure out a way to better engage. One of my clients I was dealing with the other day was a fairly well-known brand, and we were talking about their field service process one day, and I'm like, okay, so tell me how things go. Well, my tech comes in the office, we hand him a pile of work orders, and I'm like, excuse me? They go, yeah, we hand him a pile of work orders, like a pile of work orders. They go, yeah, pieces of paper. I'm like, oh. And we require the tech come back in the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays to give us back finished work orders. I'm like, what? And so, of course, I'm sitting there going, it's all paper based. And they go, yeah. And so, oh. And I'm having a hard time processing the fact that people actually carry dead trees around with them still. And the client goes, the biggest problem with that system is? And I'm sitting to myself going, it takes you 8 days to get invoice out. And they go, no, we can't recruit new people. We can't get, the technicians are coming up today don't want to use paper. They're used to using, Instagram or ClickChat or who's a what on their phone. They weren't willing to accept this company's idea of what a process should be. So they said, screw it. We're not going to work here.
And just for clarification, that last social media application was Who's a What? Did I get that right? Okay, yeah. Who's What? Okay. I just want to make sure I signed up for that immediately.
It's a cousin of WhatsApp and Who's It. But anyways.
Okay, there you go. So what you're saying is by not automating some of these processes through easy integrations that we're doing today, you're not only delaying your, for all intents and purposes, your supply chain, but you're also limiting your ability to either expand as a business or gain efficiencies with resources that can do much better work than the ones you have currently.
That would be correct, sir.
I didn't even think of that being a thing. You know, it seems so simple, but honestly, I did not even think of that being a thing. Like someone saying, because now that I think about it, I don't think my daughter has ever written a check on paper, right? So that makes a lot of sense. With millennials now, they're much more keen to electronic methods of communication, documentation, execution of tasks, that sort of thing. So very interesting. Probably
in 20 or 30 years, you probably want everyone would be like, "What's a notebook?"
Yeah.
Is that a laptop?
Yeah. Well, you saw the iPad commercial with the little girl that says, "What you doing on your PC?" She goes, "What's a PC?" Which is garbage because no one's right now saying what's a PC. That's just silly. But anyways.
So, and I don't consider an iPad a competitor to a Surface Pro, but that's just me.
No, nor do I.
Well, but from a perspective of who we're talking about in the field, I mean, most of the people we have, I mean, it's funny. The technicians I look at, they either have all they have is a phone and maybe a tablet. And by the way, they don't get them iPads. They get customized. They give them cheap Android tablets generally. You know, we're not talking. I mean, most technicians don't even get PCs.
Right.
I mean, so it's one, unless they're doing something unless their work involves a PC, they don't even get them. So it's a for me this addresses a really good thing, and IoT, kind of circling back to what we're talking about, IoT helps kick off the initial part of that. So the process from soup to nuts becomes a stateless project for the client.
That's a little bit deep, Ben. I'm not going to lie to you. That's a little bit deep. And I think I gotta ask one question before we wrap, because we're getting close to time. What do you see? Fast forward, let's just even go 18 months. What do you see? And I'm not asking for confidential roadmap kind of stuff. That's not what I'm asking. Conceptually, what do you see in the connected field service space in 18, 24 months?
So I think, and it's happened it's happening right now. So I think based on timeline, it's going to take us that long to get there. If you look at there's a product Microsoft just released, I don't know, a couple weeks ago called IoT Central. It's basically IoT as a SaaS offering. And the goal there would be if you are, Hobbit Widget Manufacturing Inc., and you make very small objects.
Mm-hmm.
For small people.
In Scott, for small people.
Very cute.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. And Scott,
that's fine.
And Scott is one of your dealers.
Okay.
Or he's one of your affiliates, or he buys product from you. Right now, today, you have to take all that with IoT, all that data comes into you, and you have to figure out a way to repackage it and give it back to Scott in either a different REST format or you got to do something else with the data. What's interesting with IoT Central is, Hobbit Manufacturing Inc. can set up a distributed IoT SaaS offering where you can give all your dealers access to the IoT data you have too. So you get it and they get it. And you can you basically go from being the manufacturing business to being manufacturing as well as a software company.
That is interesting.
Interesting.
I don't even know what to say to that. That is, I need to sit on that.
I've kind of learned quite a lot in this 48 minutes, 50 minutes that we've had here, because this is my concept of IoT. Clearly, was much more narrow focused than it is now. So, I hope that our listeners felt the same way. And if you want to have a look at connected field service within Dynamics 365, we'll put some information in the show notes, as well as the presentations from Ignite that Ben mentioned. But Ben, if you want to let people get in touch with you on social media, how would they do that?
LinkedIn. I follow Twitter mainly to see you guys barb at each other. In all honesty, I would do it's linkedin.com/in/Ben Vollmer. I think that's a great way to do it. The other thing I would tell you is I put in the notes there, Sean. There's a great hands-on lab that Jack Bender, Jeff Marsalis, and Paul Botzi and I built that actually takes you through building your first connected IoT device using a device called a particle electron or a particle photon. It costs about $45 to do. Takes about 6 hours. Your first time of doing it. So your readers might be interested in, or listeners might be interested in that. That's a great kind of drop off into the wild blue yonder that is connected field service.
And that could be a great way, for example, if any of us like at Hitachi or DXC for you, Ben, wanted to really start getting their hands dirty within the connected field service IoT space and potentially showcase the capabilities within that area to customers.
100%, Scott. I mean, I carry I'm surprised the TSA doesn't give me more of an inspection than they do already. But I carry about a dozen or so IoT devices with me almost every time I fly, and customers love it. I mean, it's literally because all of a sudden you made it very real to them what we're doing.
Right. And we will include that in the show notes. And at the very, very least, if you're not looking to try to implement connected field service, but you're interested in IoT, that's a great way for you to just play with the technology, understand it a little better. And if you got a kid, it's a great STEM project. So either way, I think it's a win. So, Ben, I'm very happy that we finally got you on. This was awesome. I've learned a lot. I hope our listeners have learned a lot. Scott, I can't vouch for because, his learning curve is longer than others. But
nice.
But just teasing. But we really appreciate you being on the pod, and I'm sure we're gonna have you on again in the future. But I'm looking at the clock, and Ben, do you happen to know what time it is?
It is Diva time.
There's just sweetness all around inside.
The Dynamics 365 diva herself.
And, we just took a deeper dive.
Today's a special episode.
That's a great question.
I am wonderful. Okay, once again on the At Your Service podcast. What time is it? That's right, it's Diva time. We're back with Sarah Jelinek. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Sean, how's it going?
Super good. I'm a little winded, not going to lie to you, but that's all right. Today, I think we're going to talk about case creation rules, right?
That is absolutely correct.
Fantastic. Let me know more.
All right. Well, case creation, automatic record creation and update rules in Dynamics 365. This was a feature that was actually built into the spring release of CRM 2013. That's just random bar trivia. If you ever want to know that, or you want me on your team, I'm happy to help out. But when I first saw this, I thought this was amazing because this is functionality that it seems like it's so new, but really it's something that's been possible for us with workflows, with queues, with working with emails, but it just makes it a little bit more intuitive for an end user to figure out. So really the concept behind it is with this automatic record creation is that we can say if an email comes into a queue, let's take that and let's evaluate the contents of that message. We can look at the subject of the email. We can look at who sent it. If it came from a contact, we can look at that contact's account and figure out are they, gold level, platinum level customer, whatever. We can take whatever information we have on that record and we can evaluate it and we can determine what we want to do with it. Now, for a lot of people, it might be just to create a case, just to put that case in a queue and let our customer service representatives handle it. But it doesn't have to be cases. It could be, just an inquiry, like we're just doing a simple email. We just want to put that into a queue. That's it. It could be a new lead if someone's doing that. Contact us on our website as a new lead that we might have a sales opportunity for, or we can go create a custom record type, a custom entity if we want to. It's a really nice, intuitive user interface, as I mentioned, for people to implement. And what really we just need to do is we just need to figure out what we're looking at and what we want to create from it. So one of the things that you probably see 90% of the time that people will utilize this for is automatic case creation. So they have a queue where they're going to have an email address that people send information into, like support@yourdomain.com or IT support or help me, whatever it is. We have a queue that's basically gathering email messages. And now we can go through and we can figure out, all right, what do we want to do with this? Do we want to automatically create a case? We can look at the subject of the email and say, do we want to say, based on the subject, do some type of evaluation with that? And that doesn't have to be just for, some of your channels like email or phone calls or, activities like an appointment. It could also be social activity if you're utilizing social engagement. Maybe someone, had a bad tweet about your company and the sentiment is negative on that. We can utilize that in our record creation rules. So it's a really nice feature that people can figure out without having to know how to write a workflow. Dynamics CRM, Dynamics 365 does it for you all in the back end.
So can you have multiple case creation rules, or is it just a single rule that rules them all?
That's a great question. So that is, there's a possibility to have more than one. So for example, you can have one active rule that is utilizing a queue. And that would be an example of an email rule where you have emails going into a queue that will, emails that come into an address get created as email activities and they get put into a queue. So you can have one like that. You can have one that does not have a queue. And that would be more like your social activities. So I can have two rules that are creating records that are both active, one with a queue and one without. So you have a couple of options there. With the rule that has your queue as an example, like I say, most of the time people tend to use an email for that. And then based on that, you don't always have to create the same type of record. You can have a rule that maybe creates a case. You might have a rule that creates a lead, and you might have another rule that creates a completely different record. So you're not tied to just creating one record type within your system.
So this is different than the routing rules, right? This is what we're talking about is to create the case, or is this routing it as well?
You could actually do both if you want to. You could have it create the case, and then based on the type of case that gets created, if it's a high priority email, we can have it automatically be assigned to a high priority team or create a queue item and put it into a high priority queue. We have that capability. But routing rules will actually work with your automatic record creation. So if you have some really detailed rules set up based on the subject of a case or something in the description or maybe the customer that is on that case, you can have your routing rules will automatically run as soon as a record is created. Routing rules will work in conjunction with that. But you can basically go through and if you're not utilizing routing rules, you can just do your own routing within that case or record creation.
Very cool. Very cool. I've implemented that a couple times, and it's always finding the best triggers to create the cases is typically the key. For example,
Yep.
if it's email based, what I have found is you have all these emails coming into the queue, and maybe not all of them are good to be created, to have a case created against it. Like, for example, if you have an email that is an auto response for like out of office, you want to weed out those. So how do we filter those kind of things out that otherwise might meet the criteria to create that case?
That's a great question. And that's something that when you start to plan these, you can obviously set them up within a matter of a few minutes, but you really do want to take time to consider those situations. So an auto reply is a great question. I get that quite a bit. So when you're creating these case creation or record creation and update rules, you have what we call the details. And to me, they're just like a set of rules that are going to be evaluated from top to bottom. In the example of an auto reply, we know that most out of office messages are going to start with automatic reply, RE, and then a colon. So you want to take those into consideration. You can look at that and say, if the email message that's coming in has this, we know that's an automatic reply. Someone's really not wanting to create a case, so we can, or create a record, so we can just ignore that. So we can create a rule that says if this is the situation, then just do nothing. And then at that point, your rule will stop evaluating. It won't look at the other conditions, and you won't have a record be created. But you're right, it does come down to what information are we trying to gather from that, and then can we determine should a case be created or should a record be created? I'll give you an example of where we utilize something like this very recently. We have a customer that will email our support team, and there's a small group of people that will handle those cases. And we don't want to necessarily wait for our dispatcher or our customer service manager basically to look at that and determine where that case should go. We know it should automatically go to this group right away. So we could create a rule that says, if the email address was from this domain, let's go ahead and automatically create a case. If not, then we don't do anything. Those email messages can sit in the inbox, and then the manager could then decide what they want to do with it. So you can have it be just for a specific customer, a specific topic, and then you could just, basically let those other emails just sit there and let someone else look at that mailbox if they need to and determine what actions need to be completed. All right. One of the things that when we start looking at those rules that we set up is you want to think about your very rare occurrences that may happen, and then your most frequently occurrences where you want to have a record be created. So those kind of exceptions, you want to account for those. And when you set up your rules, keep in mind that those rules are going to be evaluated from top to bottom. So whatever is the first rule in that list, every time the system will evaluate that email or that record to that rule, it will determine if this is met or not. If it is, it's going to stop evaluating the rest of the rules. So if you're looking at, I don't want to potentially miss any type of case, you do want to have a basic rule all the way at the bottom that's kind of your fallback, your catch-all, to make sure that you're not missing anything. I would rather have a case be created for a spam message than me potentially missing an important email from a customer. So you want to make sure that you think about when you're setting up those rules that you do have the capability that you're not going to be missing anything. And for those people that maybe aren't on Dynamics 365 or Dynamics 2015 or higher that has this automatic record creation built in right now, you could still achieve this by utilizing workflows, by utilizing your queues. And you're basically just kind of setting up the same information. You're setting up a bunch of if statements or check conditions that are looking at the same information that you're setting up when you set up an automatic record creation rule. So you can do this if you have more than one queue that you need to monitor, if you're going to have multiple case creation rules that have so many different variables and different mailboxes you're monitoring, you can still utilize this using the out-of-the-box tools if you don't have record creation available to you. So this is something that everyone should be able to use. And if you have the time, I'd say take a look at it and see how that could make your customer service and really just your service overall in CRM be that much more efficient.
Those are some great tips. And in the case creation and routing rules really is a powerful component of the customer service experience within Dynamics 365 for, well, I guess it's still customer engagement. Even though it's service components. But I agree with everything you said there, Sarah, and I think this is some great info we're sharing with our audience.
Yeah, I can talk about this for hours and days, but I hope everyone can look at utilizing this if they haven't already in their organization.
Well, we will definitely probably revisit some of this down the road in other episodes or snippets of DivaTime. And, the last time we adjourned, I forgot to ask you, how do people connect with you on social media should you want to be connected with?
That's a great question. You can follow me on Twitter at Dine365Diva. I'm also out there on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with anyone and have a great conversation about service through either of those tools.
And as always, you'll be able to hear her here on At Your Service when you look at your watch and you wonder what time it is. It's DivaTime. On behalf of everybody on the podcast, I appreciate you listening. And as always, we are at your service. At Your Service is a production of Dynamic Podcasts, LLC. Follow Sean on Twitter at CRM Hobbit. Subscribe to the CRM Audio network of podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, or any place else that fine podcasts are available. You can email us at voice@crm.audio.